Throughout human history, we lived quietly in caves or small villages as small groups of hunters and gatherers for thousands of years. However, there came a moment in the timeline when everything in the world changed at an incredible speed. Suddenly, massive cities appear, and writing begins to be etched onto clay tablets. Kings, legal codes, tax systems, massive temples reaching toward the sky, and a highly organized social structure seem to emerge out of thin air. And at the center of all this inconceivable change, there is a highly mysterious people who lived in the hot lands of Mesopotamia thousands of years ago. The Sumerians. So, why do many historians and archaeologists around the world accept them as the first civilization? And even more interestingly, where did the Sumerians, whose language resembles no other civilization around them, truly come from? Were the Sumerians that first great leap of human history from darkness into light? Today, we are going down to the very first lines where history began to be written. To find the footprints of this massive civilization, exactly where on the map do we need to look? We must turn our eyes to that very special region of the Middle East, the area between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, southern Mesopotamia. This fertile crescent, which remains within the borders of modern-day Iraq, is considered the cradle of humanity. In the lands of legendary cities like Ur and Uruk, an incredible movement began in the 4th millennium BC. People coming together by the riverbanks in the middle of the desert built massive, walled cities for the first time on a large scale. The Sumerians created the first great example proving that human history did not just consist of small villages, but that massive urbanization was possible. The word civilization does not just mean people gathering and eating together. Civilization means a system. The massive leap the Sumerians contributed to humanity was not so much the tools they found, but the massive social system they established. For the first time, humanity was organizing not just to fill their bellies, but to conduct trade and plan for the future. By inventing cuneiform, they made the spoken language immortal. They governed each city like an independent state through kings and priests. By recording crimes and punishments, they established the first legal and recording system in human history. They collected products and redistributed them to the public through a system we call the temple economy. And most importantly, they initiated the division of labor, where not everyone worked in the field, but some were blacksmiths, some were soldiers, and some were merchants. Humanity began to see large-scale and organized life on those tablets for the first time. Among the legacies the Sumerians left us, the greatest is undoubtedly writing. However, most of us think of writing only as two people sending messages to each other. In fact, the invention of writing is the connection of the human brain to an external hard drive, a memory card. The Sumerians moved human memory outside the body by inventing that famous script we call cuneiform. Now, the taxes collected by a king or the debts of a merchant were no longer just kept in mind. They were turned into a legal document by being carved into clay tablets. Thanks to writing, trade grew incredibly, legal rules were announced to everyone, and knowledge acquired over generations could be passed down thousands of years later. In short, writing was not just a communication tool, it became civilization itself, the operating system of the entire structure. In internet documentaries or conspiracy theories, it is said that the Sumerians appeared out of nowhere, as if they descended from the sky. From the outside, it truly looks that way. One day there are only mud huts, and the next day massive canals, a state structure, and advanced writing appear before us. However, when archaeologists dug deeper into the ground, they saw that the truth was not quite like that. In fact, everything did not happen all at once. Before the Sumerians, there were farming cultures and village settlements that we call the Ubaid culture, which developed slowly over thousands of years in that region. People were already gradually learning to control the water. However, when the population reached a certain critical threshold, the development stopped being slow and exploded exponentially at an incredible speed. Humanity experienced a leap. Since they did not come from space overnight, then where did the Sumerians truly come from? This question is one of the central mysteries that archaeology and linguistics are still trying to solve. The definitive answer is not yet clear. Some theorists argue that they emerged from within Mesopotamia itself through the development of local peoples. Others advocate the migration theory, suggesting they came from Central Asia, mountainous regions, or by sea to settle in that area. However, there is a very important detail here that baffles scientists. The isolated structure of the language. Sumerian is one of the language isolates, meaning no clear and organic link can be established with any major language family known in the world today. It does not resemble the Semitic languages around it. This loneliness of the language makes the origin of the Sumerians much more mysterious and open to debate. This linguistic isolation brings up a very heated and popular question, especially in our geography. Were the Sumerians Turkish? In the past and today, some researchers have tried to establish a genetic link between Sumerian and Turkish because Sumerian is an agglutinative language. By combining some word similarities in migration theories from Central Asia to Mesopotamia, claims that these two nations come from the same lineage have frequently been put forward. However, we must maintain a very solid scientific balance in this debate. Those word similarities could be a result of cultural exchange, sharing the same geography, or simply coincidences. Today, in the world of mainstream history and international linguistics, there is no strong, definitive, or academically accepted evidence that the Sumerians are ethnically Turkish. If there is no strong scientific evidence, then why is this theory still talked about so much? There are very deep sociological and psychological reasons behind this. Every great nation wants to connect itself to the oldest, most magnificent pages of history in its search for origins. The desire to establish a cultural or racial historical bond with the Sumerians, the oldest and most advanced civilization in history, gives people national pride. Basing our roots on the people who found the world's first writing is a very attractive romanticism. In short, people always want to see a familiar trace of themselves in history, on those old dusty tablets. Whatever their origins may be, the greatest permanence of the Sumerians is hidden not in their blood, but in the religion and mythologies they created. The ziggurats of the Sumerians reaching toward the sky were not just for worship, but were massive staircases built to reach the gods. The pantheon of gods, the stories of the creation of the world, and the creation of mankind from mud were carved in detail on those tablets. Especially when you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, you cannot believe your eyes. The story of a great flood that destroyed humanity and the chosen man who survived by building a ship from that great deluge. These stories sound incredibly familiar to you today, don't they? Sumerian mythology forms the roots of that great tree of stories that extends to the mythologies of the Babylonians, Akkadians, and even monotheistic religions that came after it. The secret of this development is hidden in the power of the land and water, that is, in the agricultural economy. This region between the two rivers had incredibly fertile soil. However, soil alone is not enough, intelligence is required. The Sumerians learned to direct the water and perform irrigation engineering by establishing dams and canals. In this way, they obtained much more than just filling their bellies, they produced a massive agricultural surplus. Thanks to the agricultural surplus and abundance of products, not everyone had to work in the field. They now had the free time and food to be soldiers, priests, or architects who would build massive ziggurats. They also established excellent trade routes by selling these products to neighboring regions. The agricultural surplus was the main engine that took people out of farming and made specialization and urbanization possible. The Sumerians did not live only in temples or the palaces of kings. Walking through a Sumerian city at that time, you could feel as if you were in a modern metropolis. In the streets, you could see cloth merchants and artisans processing gold and copper. Priests were in the highest class, calculating stars, calendars, and astronomy at the top of the ziggurats. Administrators moved around with officials carving taxes onto tablets. Women also took part in commercial life and had legal rights. Instead of that boring and distant civilization in history books, the Sumerians were flesh and blood real people who fell in love, traded, went into debt, and fought. No great empire collapses in a single day or with a single blow. History has always proven this. The end of the Sumerians did not happen for a single reason either. On one hand, the constant, never-ending civil wars between city-states completely weakened their economies. On the other hand, there was the military pressure of the Akkadian Empire rising as a major threat just to their north. However, the real big blow that destroyed the Sumerians did not come from humans, but from nature itself. Because of wrong irrigation techniques over centuries, those fertile agricultural lands became salinized and parched. Climate changes in Mesopotamia pushed the crop harvest to the bottom. When economic pressure, hunger, and foreign invasions combined, that first and brightest light of the world slowly flickered and went out. We know what happened to the state and the cities. But did the Sumerians as a people completely disappear and get erased from the world? Definitely not. Perhaps the Sumerian state withdrew from the stage of history along with its armies, but their culture never died. The cuneiform script they invented continued to be used for thousands of years by the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Hittites who came after them. Those great creation and flood mythologies they wrote were transmitted to every subsequent civilization like a virus. Their legal systems and astronomical knowledge educated all neighboring empires that laid the foundations of the modern world. The Sumerians disappeared as a state, but their spirit and that massive civilization code they left behind continued to live. Perhaps the truly surprising thing in this long historical story is not their connection with aliens, their mysterious language, or which nation they belong to. The truly surprising and chilling thing is that humanity was able to organize so magnificently for the first time in that great war against nature and chaos. It is the fact that, for the first time, thousands of people obeyed the same rules, shared the same faith, and made the first great organized leap to leave something for the future. Thousands of years have passed over those dusty and broken clay tablets, but even today, we continue to live the system on those tablets. Even if we complain about urbanization, bureaucracy, the tax office, contracts, courts of law, and an organized economy today, that was where they were all invented. The first draft of the modern world was drawn on those muddy riverbanks of Mesopotamia long before skyscrapers were built. They took the first patent for the system in the world. As a result, when we look at the ruins of the first cities emerging from under that ground, we do not see just stone or mud. We are looking at the childhood days of our own species, of humans. Perhaps the real and unsolvable secret of the Sumerians is not where they came from or what language they spoke. Their real big secret is how they first changed the history of humanity in whose shadow we live, that great system that makes us who we are. If those small marks and epics carved into baked clay thousands of years ago still push us to think, believe, and research today, it means there is a very clear truth. Perhaps that perfect structure we call civilization is a much older and much deeper story than we think. So, what do you think about this? Do you think the modern world is rising on this massive system established by the Sumerians, or could there be even more mysterious civilizations that lived long before them but we haven't found yet? Share your thoughts and theories with us in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue exploring the secrets of the past and the origins of humanity.